if it's going to be introduced next year, teams and riders probably need to be told right now or a couple of months ago or years ago.
Good to see new venues, take it to new countries, new people being able to see the sport live. I think that's awesome. And I assume it's in their plan to go further afield as well. They must be really like on the edge of their seats all day.
All right, I'm joined by the Misspent Summers crew to chat about racing in 2024. James, we'll start with you. How's life?
Good, thank you very much, Chris. Just recovering from a long week and weekend in Leogang, getting pretty baked in the sun, actually, by the sun. And then a long drive home and just catching up on stuff in the office since then.
Nice, living the dream. Yeah, we should say we're recording this after Leogang and before Val de Sol, so if we're slightly out of sync on any news, then apologies for that, because this is probably going to go out just after Val de Sol. Ben, what about you? You're in the lovely Misspent Summers finale workspace by the looks of it today.
Yes, I am. It's actually quite damp here at the minute. I've got thunderstorms planned, forecast for today. I didn't get to Leogang, unfortunately. My van broke down. But yeah, so I watched everything from home. But yeah, very good, thanks.
That's good. We've got the on-site experience and the online experience, so that's all good. So yeah, we're going to chat about racing in 2024. We're also going to chat a bit about the rumours, I guess, that are filling the void of information around what's going on next year. There's some, I guess, fairly consistent rumours starting to form, so we'll cover those and just give our thoughts on them. But first off, let's start with enduro. And the Misspent Summers office, Ben, as we said, is in Finale, the Finale workspace, and you kicked off the season there with a little pop-in event rather than a pop-up event, and had a load of the enduro riders and people involved with the scene come into the office for an evening. How was the vibe ahead of the season getting going?
It was good. It was. I thought it was very positive. Which was good, but I think it was loads of people getting together, chatting. Quite good to just get everyone's heads together.
Yeah, nice way to start the season. And that weekend, James, looked like it was pretty full on, right? Finale is often hot, and I think it was a pretty physical challenge, right, with the heat and also the timing on the liaisons. I think you guys supplied the food stop on practice day as well.
Yeah, that was just for a bit of fun. And we talked about doing it last year and we didn't get around to it. And we thought we'd actually do it this year and do a little tea and biscuit stand, basically, on one of the liaisons during practice. And we sort of drove up there and set up a little table and some drinks and biscuits and things. And first of all, we thought we'd probably messed up the timing and no one would be coming by. And then we thought everyone would just ride past and they wouldn't really care. But it turned out that every single rider stopped and they were all really happy to see a little food station because, yeah, even in practice, it was a long day out and it was pretty warm early in the year. So people weren't really that used to the heat as well, probably. And then for the actual race day, it was like a monster. It was a big day and the liaison times were a little bit too optimistic. Which turned it into a bit of a sprint race really between the stages.
Yeah.
But apart from that, it was cool. Like really good stages. It was classic Finale loop. We were saying afterwards that if you were to go to Finale and you want to experience the full Finale, you'd probably do that loop on a shuttle day.
Okay.
And you get a little bit of everything, and you see a little bit of every sort of corner of Finale as well.
That's cool. Sounds like they selected a good route. It was cool to see DH Men back on the circuit as well. Like such an iconic stage with the sea and the backdrop and all the fans lining and like baying for blood kind of thing. It's cool to watch.
Yeah, it's still the worst stage name in mountain biking, but but it's awesome. It's so cool with the sea there, and you get so many people up on the hill. There are not many races that you go to where it's like that, with people scrambling up a mountainside just to fill every single little patch next to the track. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's wicked. How was the on-site like fan experience, Ben? I've not managed to make it to any of the EDRs this year, and it's a tricky one to kind of follow because they're so spread out, obviously. But maybe finale works quite well because it's got that like spectator on the final stage. Everyone seems to gather, and it's got that hub down in the town. Was it a good one to be on site for?
Well, just as you're saying that, it's funny because that stage is one of the hardest stages to actually access, and it's pretty bonkers that many people get out and watch it, just because it's such a tight route up and minimal parking. We messed up the parking and had to run down the stage or through the bushes next to the stage to watch anything. No, I think in general the on-site experience is pretty good. Like in the town, it's really cool. Everything's close together. It's a town, so there's stuff happening all the time. It's quite hard to go and spectate, I think, the stages. I was thinking about it earlier. A couple of years ago, we had some spectator maps where you could go and follow and go and access at certain points. But I don't think we had that this year. So it did make it a little bit harder, but fans still managed to find their way around, at least to the final stage.
Yeah, fair. And James, did you go to Poland? I know you're in Leogang, but have you been to Poland as well?
Unfortunately not, no, I didn't get there. But
Okay.
Morgan, my partner's there, obviously racing. So I got a lot of feedback from her. Yeah, and that one sounded cool. She loved it. Loved the tracks, loved the vibe, and like the number of people on the side of the track there as well was absolutely nuts, apparently.
Yeah, the Polish fans seem to get pretty into it, hey?
Yeah, it's right by a big town, and despite the enduro race being on a Friday, and we kind of thought, Friday it's a bit of a shame there won't be many people, but there are absolutely tons of people. Again, just lining every part of the course in the kind of exciting bits.
Yeah,
and making a lot of noise, so it was cool.
that is cool, man. Yeah, and how about Leogang? You've just been there. I mean, last year it felt a little bit pushed aside, the enduro. I think a few people commented on that because it was quite early in the week. Obviously, the downhill and the cross country took the focus. We didn't have a cross country there this year, so maybe that helped a little bit. And they also live streamed the final stage and did it a little bit earlier in the day, I think, than it was the year before. Like, how was the general vibe around the Leogang event?
Yeah, last year it was kind of messy, and I think the organizer, it was a new organizer for the whole series last year. They're still finding their feet. They were trying to combine 3 different disciplines in one weekend. Yes. So yeah, it was a bit tough, and the enduro race kind of finished super late in the day, just as sun was setting. But they learned from that, and this year it was way better. Really cool set of stages.
Yeah, the stages look better. A lot of people complained that it was sort of bike park with weirdly rerouted janky bits last year, but this year it looked like a good combo of nice bike park, real good natural, and then the weather coming in seemed to make it a proper challenge as well.
Yeah, it's a bit like it kind of mirrored the way people used to complain about the downhill track being too bike parky, and then it's gone full the opposite direction, and it's like unrideable in sections when it's muddy now. And the enduro was kind of like that as well. Like there were a little bit of moaning last year, and then this year every single stage was super tech, and with the rain overnight pretty much every day of the week, it was like an ice rink with loads of jagged rocks and roots sticking out, basically. So really hard to ride, and it was kind of more about, I think it was more about spending as little time as possible on the ground than staying upright. It was like go fast and take a few risks in the slippery conditions, from what the riders were saying.
Yeah. And was there much of a turnout for that final stage with the live stream on the big screen in the kind of finish bowl?
Yeah, that was really cool. They had I don't know how many cameras they had on the track, but they seemed to be filming most of the last stage, and they had it on a big screen at the bottom. They had the commentators there, and absolutely tons of people turned up to watch that, including loads of the downhill races, which they kind of did last year as well. Finished their training session, then came and all hung out at the bottom of the enduro track and watched the action. And it was really good. It was really well filmed, really exciting, looked fast, looked cool. There wasn't a time board, so there was a little bit of delay as people crossed the line for people figuring out who were gone into the lead. But again, that's just a little bit of fine tuning. But I don't know if they're planning on doing it again, but if they were to, it would be amazing. Because, I mean, I hope it wasn't just a one-off for Leogang, because it was really cool. Added loads of atmosphere and really got the vibe, and everyone was really positive after the race. So yeah, I think they did a great job really of sort of listening to a few things from last year and improving them.
Yeah, it'd be cool. It'd be nice to see that. I guess it's easier in Leogang because the final stage almost mirrored the downhill track and was in a very similar location, and the cameras are all there ready for the downhill. It's maybe harder in a standalone event, but it shows that it's possible. It would be cool if that stream gets broadcast somewhere as well, whether it's on YouTube or whatever, so that we can watch it from home. But yeah, I've been watching them from home, and I guess, Ben, other than Finale, you have as well. And there was a lot of complaint last year around the coverage and the ability to follow it. The live timing seems to function this year, and it's still a little bit clunky, I guess, to use. But once you suss it out, I found that it's pretty easy to work out what's going on and who's in the lead in the overall and all that kind of stuff. There's definitely more content coming out on the social side of things, but I still feel like there could be more. And maybe, I guess, because Instagram now is not time-based, you've almost got to go looking for it in your feed or go to the UCI account rather than just scrolling your feed and expecting to get stuff at the right sort of time. So it often feels a bit clunky in its delivery, but that's not that's an Instagram thing. I don't know, Ben, how have you found it? Have you been able to follow it like in a way that's pleased you or helped you keep up to date with it from home?
So I think in Finale there were a few issues with the live timing, with it being a bit slow to update. But in Leogang that seemed to be fine. I was able to watch. They updated something in the format of how they display the results, which confused me for a little while, where it was they changed it to last finishes rather than the actual result at the top. So once I got my head around that, it was really good. In terms of I think like there's kind of like live on the UCI MTB World Series Instagram page. There's like live clips from the stages, interviews going out as the day's going on, which I think's great. But like you said, it's kind of, if you're not on Instagram or you just don't see it for whatever reason, you might also not realize the race is happening.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of stories that could be told within enduro racing, which aren't. Like, I mean, I tuned into a pirate broadcast from the final stage in Leogang, and it looked like there's big crashes from people, which it does make you realise that there's a lot of stuff that happens on these stages that we miss or don't really. When someone gets to the finish and says, "Oh, I had a massive crash," you don't quite realise what they mean until you actually see them.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it would be brilliant if we could have a few stages broadcast live, or I don't know. It's obviously it's a really difficult sport to cover, as it is over a full day and all over the place.
Yeah, it's not an easy one. I put a post up the other day asking about like the coverage and stuff, and a couple of people made the point that I can't remember how many years ago, but a few years ago we used to have like a live text feed that was there with the live timing feed on what was the Enduro World Series website, I think, at the time. And that was actually pretty useful because that helped tell a bit of the story and put some context around it. And if you're not like super geeky and want to follow all the timing, then it's a good way to look at that, and also to know like, oh, such and such crashed or such and such got a puncture. So yeah, I thought that it maybe bringing that back. I don't know how easy that is to do, but it's been done in the past, and that helps people follow that narrative. But yeah, I think you're right, Ben. It's like the story element is the piece there. So I've watched the highlights reels, and I think they're an improvement from, and when I say reel, I should say highlights YouTube video, like the 20-25 minute piece that Josh has been doing and doing a good job on. And I think they're an improvement on last year. I like the fact that last year they had the EDR and the EDR kind of mishmashed together in the format, and now it's like it covers the EDR first and then the e-bike series, so you can decide which piece you watch or whatever. It makes that a lot easier. But yeah, and there's some really good footage. There's some great drone footage in there, and there's some good clips from the stages. But I feel like by the time I'm sitting down watching that, I know the result. I kind of know roughly like what happened, how the weekend panned out, because I've looked and I've seen the timing and who won. So for me, it's about getting that insight and the stories. And there is a bit of that. There are some rider interviews, but I feel like, I don't know, James, I'd be keen to get your thoughts, but I feel personally that it would benefit from more chat with the riders in that 20-minute wrap up than almost, I'd rather that than over riding footage, I think, because the rider footage is limited anyway. It's going to be by the nature of the event, but hearing what happened and what went on and hearing the riders' take on it is, for me, is the interesting part of the story.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think who are we to say like how they should do their videos? But it's like, I think they're obviously trying to fit an entire race into a relatively short video, and then they're trying to get, and this happens to us when we're doing our books. Sometimes we try and get every rider in a, you know, anyone who's done anything at every round. We try and get them in every round. And then sometimes we end up with the sort of same photos all the time, or the same stories, or the same people. And I think they sometimes fall into that category. It's really hard to avoid that, because every single stage you're like, oh, there's all this story and this one. So and all this rider's first, this one's second, this one's third. We've got to show an image of them.
Yeah.
So they end up doing that, and then you really quickly run out of time or space.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, so I think sometimes, yeah, being brutal in that sense and getting the story from the riders afterwards could be really interesting. It's funny, just going back to the live text feed as well. It's funny, isn't it, that I think so many people talked about that, and obviously followed it. It's such a simple thing. And it's kind of probably a really thankless task for whoever's running it, because you're just there sort of talking to yourself, putting these things out. And it's really hard to measure the success of that, because it's not like Instagram where you can put a video out of someone crashing, probably, and or breaking a bike, failing. It's not like you can put that out and get massive numbers on it, or, you know, sending it over the wall ride in at the league and going downhill or whatever. It's not like you can do that and get all these big numbers on it. So it's harder to report on that. So I think, trying to think about that live text feed, I think Kate Ball used to do that.
Okay.
And I might be wrong there, but I think, you know, it's like sitting there throughout an entire race putting updates on this thing, and then there's not really any interaction back from people. So I think it's an easy one for someone to come in and say, oh, we'll just shelve that because it's,
yeah,
you know, it's not getting us any numbers. But actually, when you speak to people, it's the thing that they remember and that they miss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? We're like, because of the nature of the way some of this stuff is distributed, like we're almost driven in how the content is created to please those platforms. So we are seeing a lot of crash footage, and yeah, it's interesting to see like the important crashes, like, oh, someone's lost the lead because they had a crash on a stage or whatever. Like, that's relevant. But just seeing a crash reel, for me, as someone who wants the story of the event, I don't really want to watch that, but I understand why that pleases Instagram and does well, and therefore the numbers look good. So it's that balance, isn't it, between getting enough traction on the platforms versus telling the story and giving the fans what they need, which is super hard, I guess. I think, well, I certainly feel that battle with posting stuff on YouTube. I don't know how you guys feel, but you want to stay true to the sport and you want to cover the stories, but at some point, like, you have to make money and you have to have the numbers come through to be able to do it. So it's a tricky balance, huh?
Yeah, I think as long as it depends how extreme you go down the sort of cheesy or fail route in your sort of desperate quest for numbers, I think. And then trying to stay true to being a media company or an organizer or whatever, or you know, whatever your role is, brand, and just staying focused on your sort of identity and role within the sport is important.
Yeah, definitely. But it feels like it's I would say a good step on from last year, and it feels like it's again an ever evolving, ever improving thing every week. Like I think the coverage is clearly, it could always be better. It's a very hard thing to cover, like we said, but it feels like there's more thought and more graft going into it this year, and I personally really appreciate that as a fan. And we've also this year, Ben, just had announced that there's going to be an enduro world champs officially for the first time, which is pretty cool, in a good resort as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've heard rumours and murmurs for a few months now, and I think it's well, maybe years actually, but I think it's brilliant. It's and like you said, really good resort, good location, and yeah, I think it's about time and good to see.
Definitely. Yeah, how's Morgan feeling about that, James? She must be stoked to have the chance to go and officially get those stripes in another discipline. She's already got the downhill stripes, but
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's so excited and just relieved as well that it's become an actual. Just because I think there's been a void, as with several things, there's been a total void of information, and that just gets filled with just negativity. I think from from all corners of the sport. So there was the last talk was, it's confirmed. This is just total rumor, and it turned out to be complete nonsense. But the last one was, they've confirmed it, but it's only e-bikes, and stuff like that for all these people, it's their career and their livelihood of their whole life doing this sport. That hearing that sort of stuff is obviously really sort of depressing. So yeah, now they've confirmed it. It's like, oh, brilliant. Okay, that was all rubbish in the end. And actually, they're obviously putting on a World Championships event, and UCI signed off by the UCI and all that sort of thing. And you imagine all the different people and organisations and protocols and form filling that it takes to get something like that off the ground for the first time ever. Obviously, it's a huge amount of work. So that, in the end, that probably explains why it took so long. But yeah, so she's very happy. Can't wait to go and do that one.
Good.
Basically.
Yeah, it's great to see. And it feels like that, as we talk about rumours, it feels like that rumour of enduro ending at the end of 2024 and it just being e-bike enduro from then onwards feels further and further and further from the truth. I don't think that's something that's anywhere near on the cards, because enduro racing feels alive and well. And the racing has been great this season. Like, the tracks seem to be really good. The competition's been really strong. It's been great, Ben, to see Charlie Murray going so well, Martin May's back. Like, there's a real good battle going on, but equally somehow Richie just seems to always manage to find the better of it over a few races.
Yeah. It's bonkers, really. I mean, he's a bit of the Bruni of the enduro world in how he's dominating and so perfect. I guess Jack Moyer as well. It's quite good to see him back up there with times. I think he had a puncture in Leogang.
Yeah, stage one, I think.
First stage, but all his times are up there. I think I see some new names up there as well.
Yeah, there have been a few. Is it Micro? Does anyone know how to pronounce that properly?
No, but he
is it
spends a lot of time in finale here riding.
Yeah.
So yeah, he did well in finale race. I don't know if there's a bit of rumour and murmur that it's local, but now he's gone on and performed well in Poland and Leogang, which is good.
Yeah, Alex Rodeo back up there again. Jesse Melamed still managing a stage win after crashing on every other stage in Leogang, which was pretty wild. And James, it was cool seeing Martin Mays at the weekend, like not super stoked maybe on his EDR performance, so went and raced EDR the following day, which is insane, and took the win in it by quite a bit as well.
Yeah, absolutely smashed it, which was ridiculous. And actually, Raffaella Richter did the same. She raced the EDR, same sort of deal, and then went and raced the EEDR, but had to drop out halfway through. But she was going well as well. But Mays was really cool to see that, and I think he's a sort of person. I don't think, I might be wrong, but I don't know, not like really very well, but I don't think you really get any moaning out of him. He just enjoys everything, and he'd just be like, yeah, I'll go and do the e-bike race as well, and probably loved it, and yeah, absolutely smashed it basically as well.
Yeah, very cool. And the women's has been tight as well. Like there seems to be a few people that are very capable of taking those podium spots. Like it's not all gone Iz's way either this season so far.
No, it's cool. And actually, I think it's been like for a while. Like there's a really good sort of depth of talent in the women's EDR as well. And then a few people are just finding their way back to the top and really pushing for those podiums and wins as well. So it's really cool to watch actually. Yeah, with good little bunch at the front who are really pushing each other. And then Izza still obviously managing to get a solid win in Leogang, to say the least.
Yeah, that was an impressive result.
From my point of view, really cool to see Morgane back on the podium at Leogang as well.
Yeah, and she won the final stage, right?
Yeah, so that was awesome.
Yeah.
I think she sort of struggled. I think like a few people, the finale one kind of knocked her sideways a little bit. She had a bit of a tough day. And like I said, I think that probably reflects a few people's sort of stories, because then they went straight into Poland. And then if you'd kind of, the weekend afterward, if you'd had a bad weekend in finale, then and you're knackered because it was such a hard race, and then a massive, massive journey over to Poland. And then with the EDR on Friday, then you're pretty quickly straight back into your racing as well. So I think, yeah, for anyone who sort of struggled a little bit at the first one, then the second one was really hard. And then they had a little bit of time then to sort of regroup and come back for Leogang.
Yeah. If you're off, like if you're pushed like that for time, then the things like nutrition and hydration tend to fall a little bit under where they should be, and that kind of stuff gets you pretty quickly. And yeah, you're right, it takes a long time potentially to recover from that. So to reboot so quickly into Poland was hard. So yeah, maybe more of a level playing field going into Leogang. But I thought it was cool to see Bex up there in the top 5 on a bike that she'd borrowed as well, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, when you sort of look at her story over the winter and what she's sort of built up for herself and Chloe, like, and then the both of them, they've done top results in the last couple of races. It's super cool to see.
Yeah, Chloe getting that third in Poland was awesome as well. So yeah, it's cool to see those two doing well on a pretty basic setup out the back of the van. So yeah, fair play. So it feels like enduro is alive and well, and coverage of the sport is definitely going in a positive direction. I think there's room for more, and I think it feels like that, you know, the broadcasters are trying to improve it all the time, so that's good. Let's move on to downhill. This seems to be where there's a lot of speculation about the future, certainly, but for now let's cover the current stuff. And Ben, we'll start with the live broadcast. My view on it is that I think last year even the camera coverage was good. Like, we're seeing more of the tracks and often seeing all of the track, which is cool. Last year I felt like it lacked a little bit of kind of graphical information compared to the Red Bull version of the broadcast, and that feels like it's been improving this year. Like, there's more stuff, more stats, more overviews of the splits, more analysis coming in. So I think that's good. Like, how are you feeling about the live broadcast side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's got a lot better, especially with, like you said, the graphics and things. Like, they have like a live track preview and where the splits are. And I actually found that really helpful in Leogang. Also, the average speed on the motorway, I was finding that quite interesting to watch, actually, because I was trying to work out who was going to go faster, and it's like you could see that some riders would actually go quite fast at the start of the motorway and would lose speed, and the riders that did well on the motorway were a little bit slower at the start, but built up the speed towards the end, which I thought was actually, that's just something else extra that you can think about whilst you're watching.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is really good.
Yeah.
Commentary I thought was really good in Leogang. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, fair play to Josh Carlson. I don't know how much notice he had stepping into the booth there, but yeah, he did a good job for his first go at it, eh?
Yeah, definitely. I think that was great. I was a bit a slight negative, I was a bit disappointed about the top section of the track that you couldn't see much in the live broadcast.
Yeah, I agree.
Uh, I think they are showing the whole track on camera, which is brilliant. But that far away drone shot doesn't really do downhill racing justice. And
No.
I think little clips and snippets of it would be good. But
Yeah.
there's a few sections like the new off camber. I was thinking that would have been really good to see closer up. That you
100%. Yeah.
can't really tell how difficult something is from the higher up camera.
Yeah, that like turn into it and the hop up onto the high line that a few people failed to get. Like I was like, come on, I want to see that properly. Yeah, it's the drone shot's cool and it gives you that context and a bit of a feel for speed maybe. But yeah, I agree. I'd have liked a little more. And I guess there's a limit on how many cameras they have available, but still, yeah, it would have been nice to see more up there.
And I think from like just a paying attention point of view as well, it was quite a big section of the run all on that drone, so it wasn't cut between other shots. And I can see it being, I found myself reaching for my phone between that, because it's just a little bit harder to watch.
Yeah.
So I can imagine it does kill the pace a little bit of spectating.
Yeah, fair.
But then sometimes they flip to infuse whilst that drone shot was playing, which was good. But I think in general it's good. Also, sorry, one other thing about the I think it would be quite good if there was a bit of communication between the finish line interviews and the commentary, because sometimes they get cut off midway through, and I think it could be quite a good insight for the commentary team to know what's just been said.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't appear that there's any that they know that there's a interview happened.
Yes, I think Sven and Andrew Neethling were talking about this on their podcast for the post show. Yeah, they felt like the booth was still carrying on commentating, and then the director is cutting away to a rider interview and cutting back while they're still commentating, so they don't have the context of that full picture. So maybe that's what's going on. But yeah, I agree. I think it would feel would make a bit more sense, and they could then react to what the riders said and all that. I don't know how logistically how that would work, but yeah, agreed that could be improved. And sometimes the timing of that, I'm like, I really want to, like, this run's quite important, or this is an important section. Like sometimes they choose an odd time to cut away, but I thought it was they were getting the replays of crashes up quickly, so you could kind of look at what would happen. Like, for example, Jess Blewitts, they got that back quick, so you could see her push the front wheel and over the top of the corner. So that stuff was pretty good. I don't know how you boys feel. James, maybe you can comment, but like I feel a little bit concerned about the heavy use of injured riders in the commentary and live broadcast side, just because, not because they're not good at it, because they really are, and I love those perspectives, but I worry a little bit about the consistency of the broadcast product when those riders go back to racing, which hopefully they do. So it's kind of cool to get that insight, but I feel like the broadcast needs like some pairing or group of three needs to build a rapport and a working style that we all kind of gel with and get used to, because I think that's why we've been so wedded to like Robin Elliott or Robin Tracy or whatever it's been in the past, because there's been more of that, or Robin Claudio, there's been more of that consistency over time, which I think helps as a listener, watcher, whatever it happens to be.
I think the sort of rider cameos are they've been successful. Every single one of them's kind of worked so far. I thought I don't know who they had. They've had Minar, obviously Quinn's there. They had Isabeau and Charlie Murray commentating in Poland. They've all been brilliant. But it's funny, we were watching a race back a week or so ago, and couldn't figure out how to change the language on the Eurosport app. Like the little language changer just wasn't there. So we're watching in French because we live in France, and Cedric's commentating on the French version, and he's absolutely brilliant. He's really good, really, really good. Like he got a lot of stick last year, obviously, being the kind of the hype guy shouting.
colour.
And yeah, exactly. And he got a lot of stick in the comments, obviously, and from people saying, whatever, load of rubbish. Always some nasty stuff and everything. But he was doing that not in his sort of native language, and in the French he was brilliant. So we're looking at that and we're like, it's brilliant in French. And then kind of went, oh, who's replaced him this year actually? And then it's like, oh yeah, no one actually. There isn't a replacement for him. They've just slotted in Gwyn as the sort of the colour commentator or whatever. So then we were like, so are they? I wonder if there's a plan to get a new sort of, like you said, long-term duo or trio of commentators where they aren't leaning on injured riders or riders who've just finished their race and then get put into the commentary booth sort of thing.
How would you feel about Rick and Josh getting together? Because I thought Josh had a good sort of hype and energy, and a few of his little sayings and stuff that added some fun and excitement to it. Like maybe those two, as a more consistent, they're both, I guess, employed by Warner Brothers Discovery. I don't quite know how that works, but that would be. I think that would be quite cool.
Oh, definitely. I think obviously it seems like a no-brainer. So they must be considering that or have considered that. And a nice balance of sort of, I guess, two different tones as well, like literal tone of speaking. My only thing with that is that just going back to the enduro, I think Carlson taking charge of the enduro sort of output has been brilliant this year. And like we said, there's stuff, and he's obviously learning. Like he's gone from being a rider into a media role, and he's still discovering that. But he is providing some really good insight, and I'm sure he'll keep providing insight. And he's also providing a link between the riders and the organisers, which wasn't there before. He's set up a group so that there's some real discussion between riders and the organisers. So
that's cool.
I'm sure he's got a lot on his plate doing that already. That's that's a full-time job. Plus obviously doing the on-track stuff during the races, so doing downhill and cross-country races. So I don't know. I guess that's their conundrum with that option.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I thought it was amusing. I saw some comments online that people were complaining that they missed Rick from the enduro coverage. It's weird how people get like so settled into one thing. And that they'll complain. There's people complaining about Rick on the downhill coverage, and there's people complaining that he's not doing the enduro anymore. It's like whatever you do, it's hard to win. But it's a big job to cover just one of the disciplines, I think, let alone to do multiples over a weekend when they're combined. So it's a tricky one to get right, but interesting to see how that pans out. But again, feels like there's good improvements. Feels like we've got more cameras. Ben, it's been awesome to have junior racing available the last couple of years, especially this year. Like the racing's so exciting to watch. I've been really enjoying that.
Yeah, totally. I think it's great. Like it's something we just didn't see before, and now you can really compare them to elites. And like in the past we saw like a fast time from a junior, and now you can see actually. That was because the elites race was wet or the track conditions had changed. It does make it a little bit easier to compare between the two categories. And also just I don't know if the level of riders has improved or it's just because we're able to see it, but it's nuts to see how fast they go.
Yeah, it's mental. Isn't it?
I think it's brilliant, and it shows the future of the sport. I think it shows how healthy it is.
Definitely, there's strength in depth in all those fields, which is super cool. We'll just touch on the on-site stuff. So I was in Fort William, and a massive new huge screen to watch things on, which was super cool. Biggest TV screen I've ever seen. The quali semi day was a little bit confusing to watch on site. There was often like one rider being talked about by the commentator, someone else on the screen, someone else on the timing boards, which concerned me a little bit. But I guess that was all shakedown at the start of the season. So by the time we got to finals day, it was all super slick and ran really well. So I think the on-site experience there was good. We're a couple of rounds in. James, you were at Leargang. Like, how was that being on site watching the race, was it all kind of functional and easy to understand and good coverage and stuff?
Yeah, it was. I think it was slick actually. I think it was really good. I was trying to compare it. I was looking at one of old books, trying to just compare the finished bowl with previous years, and I think there was a bit of extra seating. There's always been quite a lot of seating. There is quite a lot of stuff that kind of gets in the way of seeing the track, but it's a tight little finish bowl, and I can't remember if it was like that before. But I heard people saying that about Fort William as well, with a lot of stuff for the VIPs and so on around the finish. But it was all sick and it was really cool. And I think the LED displays on the finish line look cool when you have the rider's face pop up and doing a solid pose, stuff like that. I think that's really cool. That adds to it.
Could you read them this year? They were a little bit too far up the hill last time, I think, and the text was too small. But
I struggled a little bit, but I was standing next to someone with better eyesight than me, so
maybe we're just getting old.
No, but the experience is cool, and Leargang's always. I mean, it's always. I think they put in a lot of effort to build up the hype for this. They had two commentators on site, really building it up, and a DJ and stuff like that. It's almost too much at times. Kind of like, I think it's good. Any little gap, like when there's kind of the longer time gaps between riders, they keep the energy going and stuff like that. And to be honest, I didn't really hear many complaints from people about anything. Maybe the marshalling, definitely heard some people saying that the marshalling was a bit iffy, and that sort of people trackside were helping out a little bit. So it sounded like maybe there's some better training needed for the marshals. But yeah, as a spectator, it was awesome anyway. It was cool. It was good to watch.
That whole marshalling thing, I saw similar at Fort William, where they were way too lethargic getting red flags out and actually properly stopping riders. It could have been quite dangerous in the spot that I saw. But that feels like it's pretty common across racing in general. I've been to other races that are at a much lower level than World Cup, and the marshalling's not always up to scratch. And it's super hard, right? Because these people are generally volunteers. It's really, really hard. I know race series in the UK certainly are struggling to get enough marshals and commissaires and things like this to even put the races on. So it's a tricky one to balance out. But yeah, the training maybe, or letting the marshals feel empowered enough to close a section of track if there really is an issue and people need to be kept safe. So yeah, tricky balance to get right with people that aren't on your staff, but there you go. So far we've been all good. Let's move on to, I guess, the future. And like I said, there's at the moment an absence of information, certainly to us anyway. I don't know if maybe teams or riders know anymore and aren't able to say at this point, or what's going on, but I'm sure someone somewhere knows what the plans for the future are. But there are some rumours that are forming and seem to be fairly strong. But then, I guess caveat that some of these rumours have felt strong in the past and haven't proven to be true. So I think it's still worth covering some of these things, because if they do happen, obviously it's interesting to think about how they would fit. The first one is there seems to be a pretty strong rumour of more rounds next year. I've heard anywhere between 10 and 14, covering more North American rounds, potentially covering some rounds outside of Europe and North America as well, which would be super cool. I think everyone's been, wanting more rounds, right? We all want more racing. The riders want more. It's cool for the fans. But it is a challenge, I guess, for the industry, right? To find the money to support those things, to make sure they have the staff to support all the events, and to go from, let's say if we did go from 7 to like 12 races, that's a big change in the World Cup schedule, right? Ben, what are your thoughts on having more rounds? Obviously, the hurly-burly yearbook gets thicker.
Yeah, that will make our page count a little bit harder to figure out. No, like you said, I think that's what we want and I think a lot of the racers are happy to do more racing. I guess if it's going to be introduced next year, teams and riders probably need to be told right now, or a couple of months ago, or years ago, for getting funding and things like that, because a lot of teams are running quite a tight ship already. So I think that could make it quite difficult if it was something that's introduced quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it'd be good to go to other continents, more racing, more new tracks, new venues. Be great.
Sure. James, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, just like Ben said, really. I think most definitely fans. We'd like more racing. It's great. Racers seem to be a little bit mixed on that. Some of them say loads of races sounds great. Some of them say, oh, it's going to be hard to adjust to, and like more risk and etc., more travel, all that stuff. And then teams and industries seem to be like exactly what Ben just said. Kind of like, if we're doing more races, it's just more expense, and obviously the industry's already struggling at the moment. So if they do that, they have to take budget away from somewhere else. It sounds like, which probably isn't a good option. So I'm not sure where that would lead really. If that would mean, they'll probably just figure it out, and it'll probably be fine. And in one sense, if the industry was in an amazing state, doing well, they'd probably, and they had loads of money to throw at stuff. More races means more people seeing your bikes and kit and stuff, so it's kind of a win for them in that sense.
Yeah.
But it's not. That's not the situation. So yeah, like Ben said, the more they know, the sooner the better. Because suddenly magicking a load of money out of somewhere for however many more races probably isn't going to happen.
Yeah, fair. I think, everyone would like it to happen. It's just the mechanics of making it happen, especially if it's quite quickly, is not always straightforward. And purely selfishly, like, I'd quite like to know, because it changes my job quite a bit, and I need to start speaking to brands pretty soon about 2025 stuff. So I think if there is options to let people know and give a bit more confirmation on that, it'd be super cool to have and super useful. But yeah, I'm all for it. Like, I'm a fan. I like to watch racing. If there's more of it, that's great. I think this is a fairly well supported rumour by a lot of people, is semi-finals to go. Generally, not many people seem super stoked on it. I think it's much better this year with it being on the day before. Like, I think it just makes the event easier to follow, and makes the finals day back to what it should be, like a more exciting, more clear story. And then talk of them being replaced effectively by some kind of like last chance qualifier, I guess emulating like a motocross kind of approach, which I think sounds quite a good idea. So there'll be a qualifier with X amount of people going straight through into the final, and then for people that didn't make the cut, another chance for a smaller group of riders to qualify and make it through. So if you have a mechanical, you have a crash in your quali run, then you get through into the finals. Don't know what they would do with protection. I've heard quite a lot of people say they'd rather there wasn't any protection, which I sort of get, but is also kind of tricky if you lose some of the big names, and it takes a bit of the excitement out of the event as a result, because people want to follow certain people. But I don't know. Yeah, James, maybe start with you. Like, thoughts on that removal of semis and some kind of LCQ to get through to finals?
I think it's a weird one with the semi-final, isn't it? Because it was obviously only introduced last year. It seemed at the time like it was almost engineered to be removed shortly afterwards. So it's not surprising that if that's a kind of rumour, obviously, but it wouldn't be surprising at all if it does go. At the same time, like you said, Saturdays at the races at the moment are amazing for spectators because it's non-stop action all day. You have a couple of practice sessions that, I mean, in Leergang last weekend, the elite practice finished in the morning on Saturday, and juniors, or whatever way around it was, I can't remember now, the racing basically started immediately afterwards, and then it was just all day racing, one session into the next, which is kind of, like I said, it's kind of good as a spectator. I think you get good value for money. At the same time, must be a nightmare for the organisers.
Yeah,
just imagine any little hold up. They must be really like on the edge of their seats all day. If there's any sort of accident or reason to have to stop the proceedings, then that just has a knock on for everyone's race times.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Again, like you just said, the last chance qualifier sort of thing that you get in Supercross races, people that follow that, like you said, where we have qualifying round and then
Sure.
certain number of people go straight into finals, and then there's another race and a few of those people get into the final as well. That sounds cool. It's kind of the same but a little bit easier to understand, I think. I don't really know. Obviously, total rumour, so I have no idea how it would work or what day each of those sessions would be on, if they'd be on the same day, and if it would actually make the organisational difficulties any easier for them. So yeah, we'll have to see. I get total rumour, so who knows if that'll happen.
Yeah.
But it sounds cool to me.
Yeah, I quite like the idea of that. I think it's pretty cool. And then Ben, another one that seems to be fairly strong, and I guess has been fairly strong since like the Warner Brothers Discovery takeover of the series, is some sort of consolidation of teams, like less teams at the races, less riders at the races, which does make sense. Like that, you know, pretty much all the venues we go to, we don't really fit in anymore. Like there's not enough space. Some of the privateer pits especially end up being miles away from the actual track and makes everything pretty hard. The tracks are getting heavily hammered. Like I think there was nearly 200 elite males starting in Leogang, which is, you know, it's big numbers, and it's hard to manage both the track degradation and hard to manage as a sport. And like we say, any red flags can cause days to not fit anymore, not work. So I kind of get that. And I guess the flip side of that, the challenge is that, you know, it's going to make it harder for privateers, or we're going to lose that like privateer spirit, you know, the ability for riders to come in and perform at the very top level and have this kind of underdog story, which, you know, as fans of the sport, we all love. Like they're the sort of stories that will often feature heavily in your yearbooks. Like, you know, we're seeing riders even this year like Anna Newkirk, Lockie Stevens, McNabb, riders on very small teams with very, very small budgets that potentially wouldn't be there if we have to cut down on teams. I don't quite know how it would work, but yeah, keen to hear your thoughts. Right? It's a double-edged sword. I see the need to reduce the number of people there, but I also, as a fan, like would be sad to lose some of those like underdog stories from the sport.
Yeah, I think yeah, agree on both sides of that. Like that, you know, the tracks do get a lot of use and a lot of tyres down them at the minute. But yeah, it's I think privateers are kind of like such a big part of downhill, and it's not like a lot of sports where you need to be on a big team to be able to do well. Like you said with Lucky, like I think I read that it's his third ever World Cup finals, and he's third place. So in the future system, he could potentially not be there because of points or teams and that sort of stuff, which I think it would then make the sport a bit repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
If there's only the same people up there because they're more consistent. But yeah, I guess it depends how it actually is brought in, if it's brought in, and like how it would work, and if there's a way of stepping up into the World Cup scene. And I don't know, maybe without semi-finals, that's fewer tyres on the track. Maybe there's different ways of going about the race weekend to keep the track in better shape, in better condition. I think it would be a massive shame to lose privateers from World Cups, though. I think I've never raced a World Cup, but it seems like a lot of people say that's how you learn to race World Cups, is by racing World Cups.
Yeah, and I guess though, and James, keen to hear your thoughts on this, but maybe that is because of the fact that there hasn't been much of a pathway through, and because you have been able to enter World Cups basically from the back of a van just showing up to an extent, like that's what people have always done. So I kind of feel like there's never been a massive need or driver to create series underneath the World Cup to help people make that progression. Like, it's a big gap, I think, from certainly in the UK, from a national to then go to a World Cup. But do you think, I guess it depends what comes first. Like, do we need to build the series in between before people start getting pushed out of World Cups, or do you have to push people out of World Cups for the series to be created, kind of thing? Like, it's a bit of a chicken and egg one, I guess.
I mean, it'd be a bit brutal if someone takes that approach, really. Push everyone out and let them sort of fester for a while before someone hopefully starts another series. But I don't think they'll do that. I hope not. It's a funny one because 10 or so years ago, there kind of was a pathway, even though it was kind of even easier to race World Cups then. Not that it's easy to race World Cups now. But it was maybe, as a privateer, it was, it's got more and more professional now. So, more and more teams. 10 or 15 years ago, there were few teams. It was probably a little bit more of a level playing field for people going in as a privateer. But there was actually I think there was a kind of unofficial pathway to World Cups then as well. So there were really strong national series and like regional and national series everywhere. And in between those, there were, at least in Europe, there were sort of really well attended European races like the IXS Cups and the Maxis Cups, and then there were sort of national series that acted as unofficial pathways as well. There'd be some. I used to go to some of the races with some friends. Like, there'd be French Cups and Swiss Cups and things where you'd just get all the World Cup riders or hopefuls would turn up, and those would be this kind of stepping stones, I think. And they'd be point scoring races. So then, if you did well, you could get into the World Cups. But a lot of that's kind of in the last however many years, I think a lot of that's kind of dropped off a bit. There are obviously still European races. I'm not sure as many people go to them. And then on the national scene, there's definitely way fewer events and probably smaller attendance. So, which I think the organisers are well aware of, and they're probably hoping that to generate something I think it's kind of just a gap in the growth of the sport, where it's gone from this big sort of participant sport into everyone's participating in enduro races and just going riding, and then they've got to create this more professional pathway now. Like you said.
Yeah. And I guess you can incentivize attendance at those European and national events and North America, all these areas, by like the way the points infrastructure works and the way you need to get points to go to World Cups. Like, if all that had a rethink and a reshuffle that kind of made riders do a bit more of that stuff, it would drive the growth of those races and series and the profile of them, and everything come together. It's not an easy one to solve. Hey, like, I wouldn't want to be the people trying to make that decision.
No, I think something that a lot of people forget or don't know, we were talking about this the other day, is I think a lot of people who follow the sport at the moment, they know who Chris Ball is, and he's the guy who's kind of at the top of the organisation running all the World Cups, and obviously what was ESO Sports, and that's just been dissolved and become part of Warner Brothers Discovery now. They see him for that, but he's got such a deep history in the sport. From back when I was a junior racing, he was the kind of really core elite racer group that I really looked up to, who'd go out racing and live out of a van and be really dedicated to racing national and World Cup scene. From that to starting and running the Enduro World Series, and then obviously in between that, being the UCI technical delegate, and then starting his own series with Enduro, doing a lot for that, and then now doing this. I think people either don't know that or we've forgotten it a little bit, and we just see him at the top of Warner Bros now. Yeah. But yeah, in there's a really cool rider who understands every sort of level of the scene, from the privateer and juniors all the way up to the pro level. So I think they only want to do good stuff, probably. And they get a lot of stick online. Like you said, I think just the communication or information void leaves people just to speculate and fill in, saying that they're just trying to kill everything, but they're blatantly not. So I think with the privateer,
with an
I think
8-year deal, you'd hope not, right? It's not in their
No.
vested interest to knock the sport over in a couple of years and be sat with something that doesn't work for the remaining 6. So
No.
yeah, they wouldn't. I wouldn't have thought you'd sign an 8-year deal if you didn't really want to move things forward in a good way. But it's challenging, right? It's really hard to get the balance of everything right because the sport is in a great spot, but there are certain things that could be improved. I think we've already seen improvements in the level of, the cameras on track, the on-site infrastructure. Some of the stuff going on there has been super good. But yeah, how you take that and bring the numbers down to a more manageable structure for a race weekend, how you fit all these teams into the pits in all these venues, how you bring on new venues, like all of that is, there's a lot of complexity and a lot of work. And I guess, like you say, Chris has the background of all these different areas of being a race organizer, working at the UCI as the technical delegate, and being a racer, that he's kind of almost uniquely placed in a way to hopefully solve some of these challenges for us. It's just, I think everyone gets nervous when we don't know where things are going, right?
Yeah, we don't hear about it. So, and then I guess we sort of trust stuff that we see online, and all we see is people commenting, and commenters aren't generally the most reliable information source. But that becomes a rumor, and I think that's if we knew a little bit more about their goals, maybe everyone would get behind it. And if there are any blips, we'd kind of say, okay, well, we know that we're aiming for this goal, and that'll be fine. It's really hard. It is hard to, again, just to sit here armchair speculating, but yeah.
Fingers crossed. Ben, women's field needs to be bigger, right? Surely we've got to be on the cusp of that changing, I hope.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, it was I couldn't believe watching the live feed in Leogang this week, how quickly the women's feed was over. The race was over.
Yeah.
It felt, I don't actually know how long the race was, but yeah, it was 20 minutes, half an hour. It felt like I was sort of expecting it just to get going. It was bizarre that we that the feed ended so quickly, and suddenly we're into the top racing. I feel like it also helps show the excitement and the speed of top racers if we can see a bit more context, and more racing, and there's big names that don't make the cut that would be brilliant to see on TV.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Yeah, hopefully that'll change. And I guess again, it comes down to making more space in the schedule to some extent. Like, how do you carve out that space to have enough time to do more? But I guess that's somewhere that's less races taking part, or I don't know what that looks like. It's tricky one, but we definitely need to see more of those fast women on the TV, I think. But yeah, I think that coming back to the racing this year, again, it's been insane, super good to watch. James, a really good addition with the Poland venue. Like, people were again skeptical watching the track walk or helmet cam, whatever, coming in. I think, even at rider level, people were a bit concerned about what we were going to get, but that turned out to be an epic venue, both for downhill and EDR, I think.
Yeah, Sven did an interview with Finn Isles, just on her Instagram, in Poland before the racing, and he was kind of saying Finn was saying that everyone needs to stop being so negative, or jumping on this negativity bandwagon, because people had seen a GoPro and instantly written it off the track and got there and it was awesome. Everyone loved it, I think, the track. So yeah, cool. Just good to see new venues, take it to new countries, new people being able to see the sport live. I think that's awesome, and I think assume it's in their plan to go further afield as well.
Yeah, so we're here. I think there's, like I say, fairly strong rumours, I think, of rounds outside of Europe and North America, which would be cool. It feels like it's been a while. I don't know how long we'd have to actually go back. It's probably not that long, but it feels like a while since we've done it. Yeah, we should talk a bit about you boys before we wrap up. What's going on? How are the yearbooks starting to come together, Ben? I know you've, like last year, I think you started the yearbooks a lot earlier so that they were basically like ready quite soon after the last race. Like, how are things coming along now that we're 3 rounds into both series, right?
Yeah, exactly. We, good intentions last year of getting everything done during the season, but we fell a bit behind with everything, but still got the books out earlier than ever. So this year we're working again throughout the season, working on the books, and I think it's really good to be doing that. It gives us a closer insight as each race goes on, and it's not trying to remember. It makes like producing them quite a lot easier.
Yeah,
because you don't end up watching races back because they've just happened. So we're working on those as we speak, which is good. We're also working on Spent 3, a little
nice
pocket-sized book. So that's happening at the same time, and just working also on our online presence, because I think a lot of people know it's for print stuff, but we're trying to build up what we do online and more day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, nice. I wanted to congratulate you boys on the online stuff. Like, it's been super good. I think the email newsletter that you guys send out for all the rounds is really good. There's some great insight in there. It's real fun to read. And I also really like I think you call it views stuff that Sven does with the riders over the race weekends. The one with Finn after his performance at Leogang, I think possibly one of the longest views so far, but like, it was super insightful to hear that conversation about what had gone on. James, how are people getting that stuff? So I think views is on your Instagram, like almost straight away after the race, at Misspent Summers, and then you have like the long views on YouTube and Spotify, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we put bits and bobs out during the weekend on Instagram, and on the website, and then afterwards all those interviews are put into a long views episode on like you said, on YouTube, and if you watch it on YouTube, then it has a bit of a slideshow sort of element to it, and obviously, but you can also listen to it on podcast apps. So that's cool. We love doing all that stuff. It's good. Although I get the sort of foundations of our company is print stuff, and that's kind of our product that we make and sell. We love doing online stuff, and it's quite nice because it's a little bit more reactive, and we can put it together and publish it, and it's out there within a few days or a few hours or minutes or whatever it is, and that's really nice because you just get that closure. Whereas books are, they're sort of ongoing for months and months and months, and they become it's just massive. They're always a massive project, so it's nice to do a bit of both, really.
Yeah. And how do people sign up for the newsletter? Is there a sign up on misspentsummers.com?
I think if you just go misspentsummers.com /news, you should get it, and you can sign up there, or you can just go on the homepage and scroll down, and you'll find a little sign up form. Yeah. So thank you to everyone who follows us as well, like whether it's the newsletter and people who take the time to send us a little email and say that they've been reading and give us a little bit of feedback as well, and more stuff that they want to hear about in the newsletter is always good, or on our social media. And it's nice to get all the feedback on social media and messages again from people. Thank you everyone who's following us.
Nice, good stuff. And Ben, if people want to see the physical manifestation of Misspent Summers, obviously there's Finale Workspace where they can pop in and pick up merch and mags and hang out, and hot desk if they need to while they're out there riding. But also you've got the pop-up coming up in Leger again this year, which was absolutely incredible last year. It was one of probably the best thing in mountain biking for a long time, but it's coming back in a slightly different format, I think, for 2024.
Yeah, well, that's far too kind of you, Chris.
I had a good week.
I think it's the eclair. Yeah.
It was the eclairs. Yeah, they were pretty special.
Yeah, bakery product bribery. But yeah, we're doing something similar, but yeah, like you said, a little bit different. Pop up, same place as last year on the high street in Leger. But we're also it's going to be going on for 2 weeks, so we'll be there for the passport weekend, which is the weekend before the World Cup. And we'll be there hanging out, working on stuff, chatting. Mike Rose is helping curate it again, so he'll be there. We'll have, I don't know how much to say, but we'll have more recent images from Sven, Boris, and Seb, who were photographers for the yearbooks, who've been doing an amazing job this year, staying up far too late to upload images for us. Yeah, we should have coffee again and beers in the evening, so come and say hi.
Excellent. Yeah, was a proper highlight, that one. So yeah, people should come and find it on the high street in Leger if they're around during those 2 weeks of the EDR and the World Cup and Passport de Soleil on the first weekend. James, anything else misspent that I've missed that you want to mention?
Well, just one thing that well, actually, no, yeah, several things. I guess with our sort of goals, one thing that we try and do is, or one of the reasons that we sort of made the company is to sort of help sort of support the sort of media talent that we think in mountain biking. People are doing a really good job. So I think anyone out there who's aspiring and also sort of likes the style of stuff that we do, don't be scared to get in touch. Like, we always like speaking to people, and if we can sort of help people sort of, get through, get into it or improve or sustain their career, like that's always exciting. And another thing is that shipping worldwide, it was funny what Ben said about the page count maybe getting out of hand in our books if there's suddenly loads more rounds of racing. But it is actually a serious, for us, it's quite a serious consequence, because our books are like big chunky things that weigh over a kilogram each, and shipping them around the world's already quite tricky, quite challenging. And then in recent times, especially shipping to Australia, for example, has just become mad expensive. So one thing we're trying to do is just create a better network of retailers and distributors. So again, if anyone's listening who has a good idea for that, then we're always keen to speak.
Ace. Good stuff. And how are they best getting hold of you? Just going via the website? Is there like a contact form or something there?
Yeah, there's a contact form on the website, or you just send to james@misspentsummers.com or ben@misspentsummers.com. Give us a shout on there. Like we said, always good to chat, ideas and feedback as well. Always welcome.
Nice one. Thanks, chat. So it's been super fun chatting. Like, it feels like we're, getting close to halfway through another awesome season of racing. I'm looking forward to seeing the yearbooks that come out at the end of it. I'm looking forward to the rest of the season as well. Feels like everything's going in a good direction, I think, on both enduro and downhill coverage. Like, I feel like there's improvements being made, and I'm certainly enjoying watching the sport as a fan. So that's a good thing for sure. And I'm excited to see where it all goes. But yeah, thanks, boys. Really enjoyed it. And I'll see you in Leger in a couple of weeks.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the eclairs are on us in Leger, Chris. So
nice one.
As long as you give us a good review again, that's all good. Thanks.
Happy days. Good stuff. Cheers, guys.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
Chris.
Cheers, Chris.